So like I said, today we'll be looking at functions in the Power Apps. And just a brief intro. A function is just like a formula, or it is a formula that allows you to change properties of your object. We talked about objects some weeks ago. And if you want to change the properties of your object, you want to tell your object what to do, you do all that by writing functions. There are a lot of functions, a lot, but for this class and for this basic section, we would just look at a few of them. Before we move on, there are two types of functions. The first is the declarative function. And just like the name is declarative, it's a function you use to declare what you want something to do. For example, the color of a button. You want to say, oh, the field of a button should be white. You're writing a function actually. And all you do is on the field property of the button, you'd say white. So you are declaring what the button should look like. And that's a declarative function. We also have another kind of function, and that's the imperative function. That one is a bit different from the declarative function in the sense that you tell it what to do. For example, you want a button, when you unselect that button, that's when you select the button on the unselect property of the button, it should navigate you to another screen, take it to another screen. All you have to do is on the unselect property, say navigate to the particular screen. That's the name of the screen. That's not like a declarative function where you are telling the object, you are writing the attribute of the object. This you are telling, for imperative, you are telling the function, go and do this. And most times you can't know all the functions at the early stage. The best thing to do is when you are feeling, oh, this is what I should be able to do. This is what I want to achieve. We have a documentation. I'll just go ahead to share my screen so we can see what it looks like. We have a documentation that allows us to know and see all things that we'll probably need to know about Power Apps. So I believe you can see my screen right now.
Yes, we can.
All right, thanks. So we'll just go to search for the Power Apps function documentation. Most times you don't need to rack your head to know, like you want to implement something, but you don't know how to achieve it. There are a lot of documentation for you to go search for online. So I'll just show us this. So like I said earlier, the functions are the formulas you tell objects what to do. There are a lot of them, and these are what they look like. A lot. So you need to do something, and you probably don't know the right function to achieve that. Just search online, go through the doc, and you'll be able to do what you want to do. So yeah, today we'll be talking about some kinds of functions. And the first one we'll be looking at is...
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, sorry, I just want to confirm you started the recording. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So like I said, we'll be looking at some types of function, and operators, all those less than, greater than, less than or greater than, less than or equal to, and all. And let's just open an application. Yeah, so I have an application open already, and I want us to see what it looks like for the less than greater than function. I just inserted a text input, and I'll make it a number. Change the format to a number because I'm trying to compare some numbers. And I would say let me also add a drop down thing I should do. Or let's add a button first. So I'm going to show us the way we can use functions. I want to do something like so this is a text input that allows users to input something. So when users input a particular set of numbers, the button field should change. So here I'll just say that's the field, the background color of the button. The color should be dependent on what the user feel inside the text input. So if this text input, the name of text input is text input 1. So if text input 1 dot text is, let's say, greater than 5, the field should be, let's say, black, else it should be blue. This there's an error. There's one red line. I don't know if you can see my screen clearly, but there's one red line here. And why? That's because it won't be able to read this. It won't be able to read this to figure out that it is a number. So to make sure the app and this condition can detect this is a number, would include value in front of it. So you say if the value of text input 1 dot text is greater than 5, the color should be black, else the color of the button, that's the background color, should be blue. So I'll test it now to say, okay, let's include 5. Sure, let's see. Is greater than 5. Okay, so let's try 2. Work. Hold on, please. The field condition of the button will be if, oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So if you remember the condition we wrote, sorry, is here. If the value of the text input is greater than 5, the color should be black. 10 is greater than 5, that's why the color is currently black. Else, that's if it is less than 5, it will be blue. So we have to change this number. If you change this number to 30, it will still be black. But if you change this number to, let's say, 2, the color will change to blue. I don't know if you understand what I wrote there, but that's how it is to write functions. If is a conditional statement, and most times we use it a lot. I'm also going to do an example on using probably a drop down so that we would see what it looks like. And just impute a drop down. Let's just put it somewhere here. I can add some items to the drop down to say, so that's going to be like the options in the drop down. So let's use bag and shoes. I'll just show you what it looks like now. So you see we have 2 options already in the drop down. So we are going to probably add another condition. I just want to cover a lot of things with just that example. So we are saying if the value of this text is greater than 5, it should be black, else blue. I might also want to add another condition to say if the value is greater than 5, and so you can either write and this way like and, or you write it with this shift and 7. So and this drop down dot selected text, sorry, drop down 2, this drop down 2 dot selected text, that's what the user selects, is equals to, let's say, shoes. If value text values and drop down dot selected dot value is equals to shoes. So and use and when you want both conditions to be true. Use or when you want either of the conditions to be true. And both conditions has to be true. Excuse me. Or either of the conditions have to be true. So if you notice now, I'm saying if the value of this input, this text input is greater than 5, and this drop down is equals to shoes, the color should be black, else the color should be blue. So I'm going to test it now. If the value of this is greater than 5, if you notice, this is still blue because the second condition is not fulfilled. Let's change it now to shoes. It has changed to black. That's an example of conditions and functions that you write. If I can also change that stuff to or, so that when either of the condition is fulfilled. So we can write or by writing it in Word, or by using this. So if either of this condition is fulfilled, even if I change this one to bag, and let's say this one too is still there, the color will still be black because either of the condition is fulfilled. It's not like that first one where both conditions has to be fulfilled. The next thing would probably check is, let's see, like I said, we can always reference the documentation to get a lot of conditions and functions to write. We have different types of functions, and we'll be looking at some today. We've looked at the condition already, and that's when we used if statement to compare some things. We'll look at the refresh. So refresh function is, I don't know, sometimes if you notice when you use social media and, for example, Twitter, and you have scrolled down to see, or maybe Facebook, you scroll down to see a lot of feeds on your timeline, but you want to start afresh, like see new ones, you would, if you're using a phone, you probably slide down, like, and the stuff will refresh. You can do that on Power Apps with the click of a button. You just say on the select of that button, refresh whatever you want to refresh. Probably you want to refresh your data source to the latest data. You can do that with the refresh. We can never be able to cover all the functions, but I'll just tell you little of them. We also have the filter function, and that's like filtering a gallery. Let's see if we can demonstrate that. So I'll add a data. Let's see. We have one data. A second, please. Okay, we are going to use our data data source. That's the list that we created last week. I'll just connect it to a SharePoint list. And I'll look for the data form created last week. I don't know why it's taking a while. Since I have the link to the list here, I'll just copy it. I'll just copy the link to the site. Okay, so yes, this is the data list. Pardon my internet, please. I don't know why it's taking a while. Wow. I wanted to use a gallery to show us how to do a filter, but it looks like it's taking a while. I just hope it loads fast. And another kind of function we would have looked at today is first n. Let me just type it somewhere for us to see something like this. First and letter n. So the first n filters a table or a gallery to show the first number, like the first items you want to show. For example, when you want to write a first n function, you would say first n, probably the data source or the gallery you want to filter, then with a comma and a number that you want to show. For example, I want to show the first 10 records in a list or in a database. I'll just say first n, the name of the list. Let's see if this stuff has loaded. It has not. The name of the list and the number of items, 10. I'll write it in number. That's like first 10. So we also have, let's just close this thing. We also have, I don't know why it's taking a while. We also have some text functions, and we'll probably want to try them. So let's say this text input is and I have another label. So I want us to look at the right and left functions, right and left text functions. What I want to be displayed on this label will be the right of that text input to write text input to dot text. Let's say I want to show the probably the 6. So that's what is going to show here in this label. So let's remove the default text from here. You see what it looks like. We're going to test it. I'll write, let's say, Victoria. If you notice, it started from right and extracted just the 6 numbers. You can also try something to say, let's change this one to the left. Let's say 4, so that we'll see what it looks like. It started from the left and picked the first 4 numbers. Most times you might not know when this is handy, but I tell you, when you start building solutions, this would be very, very important. The next thing we are going to look at is the length. So if you remember, sometimes when you want to impute password, like you're creating a password for an account, they'll say your password is too short, this and that. You probably want users to impute a longer password. How do you know the number of password characters they've written already? So let's probably change this to the length of that text input. So you'd see it now. So the length of this characters is 8. I can reduce it and you see that it's changing already. So you would also want to, that's like a use case for the length. There's so many use cases, and that's an example of that. Today we would also be looking at variables, and a variable is what we use most times when building applications. For example, I want to probably do something like this. Okay, let's see. Let's use a button. Or okay, so before then, we have 2 types of variables. We have the global variable and the local variable. So simply put, the global variable is a variable you set probably anywhere on the screen of the app, and you can use it in any other place in that particular application. That's why it is global. Why the local variable is restricted to just a screen. Let's see, or let's do something like this. So I want to set a variable on the unvisible of this screen. So when you want to see this screen, I'll say, when you come to this screen, let's say set my brand color, to, let's say, blue. I've set the variable already. Or let's use red, because this button is already blue. Let's use red. I've set the variable already. Yes. We can also say, let's set another one to say set my brand name to Vicky. this is a variable I've set. So I don't want to be probably repeating every time I want to use my color. I'll be repeating red, 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 red. This is easy because red is probably the color we're using here is in text form. What if it was in a color code or RGBA format? You'll be repeating it every time. Or you can just easily set your brand color on the visible of the screen, and you can use it anywhere in the app or on the start of the app. It can be set there. So now we're going to test this first. Let's put a label. Okay, we have one label already here. Oh, yes. So we're going to test this. This button will change the color. That's the fill to my brand color. Brand color. You see that it's already there. There's a suggestion there for you. And would change this text to brand name. Because I set this variable on the visible of the screen, you might not notice it now because you're already seeing the screen. Let's add another screen, a blank screen. So we'll go back here. Have you noticed that the color has changed? So this button, the color is now red, and that text that was showing the length before has changed to my brand name. I don't need to repeat my brand name every time. I just need to call that variable. For example, if you have a very long brand name, you don't need to start repeating it on all screens. You just call the variable. So when you are setting it, you are declaring the variable. And when you want to use it, you call the variable. Just say the variable name, you put it where you want to use it, and that's it. So the color that I already set, that's the color red for my brand. Check on the visible of the screen. Yes, my brand color is color red, and my brand name is Vicky. I don't need to start writing red, red, red on every button. I just need to refer to the brand color. So the difference between set and sorry, the difference between global and local variable is that for a global variable, you can use it in all the screen. For example, I'm going to put another button here now and say the color is red again. That's sorry, my brand color. The fill is brown color. Have you seen that I can use it on other screens? But I'm going to go and change this to let's change it to a local variable. So the difference between a local variable, the way you write it, and a global variable is a global variable use set, but a local variable use update content. So we're going to say update context. Our brand color should be red. Our brand color should be red. So if you check this screen, it worked here. The button is already red because we are referencing brand color. But if you come to the next screen, we have a button there already. Let's bring it down. We have a button here already, but it's not working. It's not red. That's because the variable we set cannot work on all screens. It can just work on the particular screen that I set it, and that's the local variable. So that's the difference between the local and global variable. Another thing we'll be looking at today is the user function. User function is always needed most times when you want to display some things. For example, I have a label. Let's just use label for me. I have a label and I want to show the user that is signed in, that whoever is currently signed in. You know, all of us signed into Power Apps before we can use it. So I just need to reference user dot full name. You'd see my name that is registered in Office 365. I don't know if it's bold enough for us to see, but let's increase the font size. So yes, so this is my name. I registered with Office 365. Sometimes you want to get user's name. Sometimes you want to get their email. For example, let's say user.email. The box is not long enough for my email, but this is what the email looks like. Let's change it back to full name. Sometimes too, you want to probably build a dashboard or something, and you want the user's image to be there. So let me show you what you can do. I don't know if I have an image on this account, but if I do, you'd see it. I doubt if I have. So the image property of this image will just be the user dot image. I don't have an image yet, so the image can also show. But you notice that there's a change. This is like showing a profile picture. But the user function allows us to bring in user details. I wish I had an image. You'd have seen what it looks like. Sometimes you notice that the image used to be round. You can just come here to change the border radius. Let's see the width and height first so that we can get the border radius. Let's change border radius to about, let's say, 60. You'll notice that it's kind of rounded, but we can also reduce this so that you see that perfect circle. Let's see, this is 100, 100. The border radius will be 50. You see that perfect circle for profile images. So this is, is someone saying something? Okay, so
No, I
this
was
is,
also listening.
oh, okay. So this is the user function. This is what it looks like. I would still try adding that data so we can see what the filter function looks like. So let's add SharePoint. And I also like us to take note of our questions if you have any, so that when we are done, we'll be able to. Let's just hope this stuff connects. So like I said earlier, we can get to know a lot about functions by doing our research. You need to do something, but you might not really know how to do it. You can type on Google and you get to see a list of functions. If you notice, it is even alphabetically aligned here. There are a lot of them, a lot. A lot. And this helps. See, there's one I saw now that is always very beautiful and interesting to use. The date difference, yes. For example, you want to know the number of days between a particular date and another particular date. The function you are going to use is a date difference. It would subtract the number of days between the dates you picked, yes, to tell you the number of days and return it. I don't even know if you try. Let's try that one. Let's see that. I don't know why the data source is not connecting, but the filter function is always handy. You can try it when you get home or when you are less busy. So let's try the date difference. Let's impute. Oh, we don't have the data source that we can. We will probably have to connect another data source. Let's see if it will. If it's not connecting to the bio data, it should connect to something else. say I have another list. It's still loading. I don't know what's happening. But that's how to connect to a data source. Very, very, very simple. I don't know. Maybe it's my internet that is having issues. I think with that, we've covered what we plan to cover today under functions, and we are just left with the filter. And it's because we're not able to add a data source to or a gallery to that. We would have seen what it looks like. So, like I said, you need to know more about functions. I'll just drop the link on the chat window for us to see the link to the documentation for functions. Most times you want to make research, just there's a documentation that is very handy for you to use. I'll drop the link to the chat window. So yes, so that's the link to the documentation for the functions on Power Platform. I don't know if anyone has a question, but next class we'll be looking at probably the patch function. Let me just tell you what patch function does. So sometimes you want to submit some details or some records to the data source. That's your database. You can use a patch function. So that when I click on this button, all the things that have filled on probably on the text input, submit it to the database. You can also use a patch function, like I said earlier, to create records. You can also use it to update records. For example, I have some details already on my SharePoint list. That's my database, and I need to update them. Most times you use it when sometimes on form, if you don't want to use the submit form property, sorry, for submit form function, you can use the patch to say, okay, everything that is filled there, go and use it to update a particular record in my database. So functions are basically what we tell our objects to do. And objects are like buttons, text, and all. Functions are very, very, very handy when you'll be creating applications on the Power Platform. So I don't know if anyone has any question. Next class, I'll try to show us what the filter function looks like. So it's just to say I have probably oranges, and I'm just giving us a live scenario or a use case. I have oranges and bananas in a bag, and I want to separate, that's like filter the orange from the banana. You use the filter function to do that. So sometimes your database, you have records of boys and girls, and there are so much, you cannot start counting number of records. You can use the filter function to say, okay, show me, instead of showing me all the table, show me the table for the boys only, or show me the table for the girls only. You can also use, there are so many functions. You can also count the number of items on that table. You just use the function of count rows. You can also sort a table, sort a gallery. You want to sort it in the ascending order or descending order. You use sort by columns. So there are different functions that would be very, very, very useful for us. I would still like to ask, does anyone have a question? I have to confirm if somebody can hear me. Can anyone hear me, first of all? Hello? Hello, can anyone hear me? Seems I can't hear.